This episode of ENVERT TV is being brought to you by the Indie Bible. The Indie Bible offers affordable music promotion for artists of all genres. For 20 years, the Indie Bible has helped independent artists with music promotion, getting radio airplay, distribution, radio promotion, and much more. The Indie Bible features the most comprehensive music business directory with over 1,500 pages, organized into 16 sections sorted by genre and geographic location, featuring radio stations, booking agencies, and more. The Indie Bible will help you to gain worldwide exposure across the US, Canada, UK, Europe, Australia, Asia, and everywhere else, all on a limited budget. To grab the latest edition of the Indie Bible, click the link in our description below.
We'll have a billion suns surround us, and galaxies unknown we'll travel to. Explore the Milky Way and all its secrets. Oh, we'll travel light. But here I am, and I just want you to know there's no one who loves me like you do.
Hey, what's up, music lovers? I'm Flisadam, the editor-in-chief here at ENVERT. And as part of this special edition of ENVERT TV, I had a chance to speak with Amsterdam-based singer and songwriter Marle Thomson. In that conversation, we detailed her formal training at the Amsterdam Conservatory, her thoughts on music education, her new single featuring Kofi Anonymous, Hearts, how she's managing in the times of COVID, and her upcoming EP, Shapes. Check out the full conversation here.
One of the things I found super interesting about you and doing my research is that you are a big proponent of not being on social media or not really engaging too much online outside of maybe talking to a fan here and there, sharing your music, keeping fans updated on what you're doing. With the virus, with COVID, has your stance changed? Have you been on social media more, or have you found this as a great reason not to be online?
Well, definitely. I've tried to be more online, but sometimes I have like a little bit of a love-hate affair with social media, because especially now it's just like everyone is online, and I've released a couple of tracks, but sometimes I get the feeling that that people are just overwhelmed by everything online. So I'm trying to find the right balance. And I really, it's an amazing medium because I can stay in touch with people all over the world, and I get really nice messages that people are really touched by my music, and I really appreciate that. But it's at the same time, it's always, I find it always hard to find the right balance between, you know, this being an artist and being real and wanting to show myself. And you know, sometimes you get these really weird messages, but I think because of these times, people are much more online, and at the same time there's so much more. It's hard to it's even harder to, you know, stand out.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's what kind of hurts a lot of artists now, especially those who tend to venture away from social media. Is like, what's your comfort level, right? Because now a lot of people are online and searching for new music and searching for ways to be engaging. And you're an artist that really thrives off live performances. That's where you really get a chance to connect with your fans. So having COVID come and now live performance are kind of like out of the window. A lot of people are not foreseeing that returning until about 2021 at the earliest. So how are you kind of managing staying connected with your fans if you are going to kind of venture off of social media for a while? I've seen that you did a lot more virtual performances or stay-at-home performances. How has that been?
Yeah. Well, I already was planning on taking some time off because, of course, the birth of my baby. So, but I am already scheduling like new releases in the next year. So I also have like a newsletter where I inform my fans what the plans are and what I'm doing. But I really try to still stay connected, especially on my stories, I think, just to post, but to really post something when I really feel it, you know, not to feel forced to, how do you say this? Well, I noticed that many of my fans really respond well when I play like an acoustic video on Instagram. So I'm planning on, you know, sometimes posting an acoustic video, and hopefully things get better in the next year. So I can really perform live again, because it's true what you say, that really works well for me. I'm still just figuring out how to really connect even more to the fans online. If you have any ideas, it's very welcome to share it with me. Because sometimes just, yeah.
I'm sure fans will, once they see this, they'll kind of give you suggestions like, hey, how about this, Marle? How about this?
Yeah, I'm very open to it.
Yeah. So another thing that I found super interesting when I started to dig into your background, right, creatively, is that you weren't originally from the city. You're from the countryside, and you
Yes.
explored the city life, and what came with that is a thriving arts community, right? So here stateside, we have some cities like New York City or Miami or California that are known for producing artists and thriving artists, right? Whether it's mixed mediums, or if it's recording music or video production, things like that. So how would you say that transition over to city life has helped you as an artist, if it has?
Yeah, it definitely helped me. Well, I come from a very small town in the east of the Netherlands. The Netherlands, of course, are very, very small compared to the United States. But so Amsterdam is like a really vibrant and cultural city. And I moved here to start the conservatory, so to study music. And that's where here I met all kinds of creative people. So yeah, you have a big creative community with all kinds of musicians, filmmakers, exactly this, I think, the same as it is in like the cities you mentioned. And that really inspired me, because it's always so inspiring to be surrounded by this creative energy. And I just get full of ideas, you know. I can meet with different people, and we work on different things. For instance, I have been working together with a couple of really nice designers from the fashion industry, like really nice young new designers. I have been making music for one of the runway shows for the Amsterdam Fashion Week a couple of years ago, which was really nice. So I would never have met those people when I would have stayed in the countryside, to be honest. But I still love to, you know, to go there to visit my family, and just to, you know, to come to rest a little bit. But I really also, I just love both, to be honest.
I mean, I'm from a really small town, and where I'm based at in New Jersey. So it's always fun to be able to kind of have that duality of like, if you want peace and tranquility, to be able to step away for a bit and then return. I want to talk about that. That was actually something that really stood out to me as well. Is that you have this drive to really merge music and fashion in a way that most artists are maybe fashionable, but you've integrated it into your actual aesthetic as an artist. And you've done work with, and I have it here, but Amsterdam Fashion Week, Dutch Sustainable Fashion Week. How is it to, like, what's that kind of concept going into it? Were you always really into fashion, or was that something that you kind of rediscovered once you transitioned over to living in Amsterdam full time?
Yeah, I think I really discovered it while thinking about the first album that I made, the Canopy, that was released in 2016. Then I was thinking about, okay, I want to do this, like this whole concept, instead of only saying, okay, here's my music, please listen to it. I really wanted to give people like a sort of total experience. So for instance, we also, like when I had my release concert here in the very famous hall called Paradiso, we also dressed it up with like 40 trees to create like a forest. And I also, and there were like movie images, and it was really nice. But I also thought, you know, fashion, and especially sustainable fashion, could be a part of it as well, because, you know, it's so important to, I mean, to also feel right on stage by what you wear. And I got really aware of that even more by living here and by being surrounded by more people who were more into fashion than I was. So I was sort of rolling into it. And you have a really nice thing here that's called a fashion library. It was just next to my dentist, and I just walked in and I thought, hey, this is nice. And it's called Lena, the Fashion Library. So I got really connected to the people there. And so we, you know, we started to work together, and I always could borrow their clothes for shows, because you always want to, you know, wear something different. So that's sort of how it started.
And I think that's kind of one of your staples as an artist, is your ability to blend different elements together. I mean, even if you kind of touched on this already, but with Canopy and then with Canopy Acoustic, you were able to blend genres together. And now that's something that for newer artists is super intimidating, right? To kind of merge the line of what sounds are and kind of venturing outside of the traditional box.
Yeah.
Was that daunting? I can only imagine, right? As a newer act, how were you able to pull from so many different elements while still managing to ground yourself in a signature sound?
Do you mean like musical elements or?
Absolutely. So maybe let's talk on musical elements and influences first, right? So you described yourself as a soulful pop, right, with touches of dreamy folk, but your music also references jazz and electronic music. So how are you able to blend all of that together if you are, for most people will classify your music as pop, but how are you able to bring all of those elements together so cohesively?
I think, well, thank you for that, for saying that, by the way, that it sounds cohesively. that's really nice. I just really try to make what I like, and I think it all comes together. Everything that I've listened to, as a little child, I started with classical violin lessons. So I also played like in an orchestra, but I also listened to jazz, and I really love gospel music. And I really love like the old spirituals and so many different elements that I listen to, and I think it sort of merges into my music, and I just try to make what I like. So I don't have like a recipe. I don't really think about it, but all these things just, you know, come out when I start to write. And especially when I started to write for the Canopy, I really wanted to go back to the basics. Before that, when I just came from the conservatory, I was making like more soulful jazz kind of music. Like I had a very big band with backup singers and horns, but I felt like, okay, I can do more with my personal story, and I really want to experiment with my sound. So I really wanted to go back to the basic, to my own basic of making music. So coming back to, sorry, take a sip of.
No problem.
I really wanted to do it first to produce. So I sort of started to produce demos on my own. I really wanted to know, okay, if I play a bass line myself, how would it sound? If I make like a drum sample, how would it sound? And that's how the Canopy was born. So all these musical elements sort of came together in this, and yeah, that's sort of my journey, I think.
And I want to touch on your time with the conservatory. We have kind of in the past, I say decade or so, seen a transition over into the DIY scene, right? A lot of artists are learning on the job, if you will, right? So they aren't following a path of, I need to go to music school, I need to study music in order to become an artist. A lot of them are taking the time to experiment while they're actively producing music or actively involved in the music scene. So what are your thoughts on music education, and is that a requirement, do you feel, for artists?
Well, for me, I mean, I wouldn't be where I am now without the musical education, because it to me, it really opened my ears. I went to a really traditional school here in Amsterdam. I did like a jazz, I studied jazz vocals. And for me to study jazz and to know where the harmonies come from without getting into theory, I mean, it was a very theoretical, so many theory classes, but it never sort of stopped the music flow, if you understand what I mean. It's just, the theory always, it has always helped me. So I really believe in music education. I think it's good to really open your ears. And for me, it worked really well. And of course, I needed a bit of time to also let go of the school experience, because you come out of school like, really, okay, I have to do this and I have to do that in a sort of way, because they sort of want you to sound a little bit in a certain way. But once you can are able to let it go, like I could, like after 2 or 3 years, then it really gave me freedom, because I have all this knowledge and I can just use it. And I'm still learning. I mean, I'm also a vocal teacher, so I also teach vocals now at the same school. Yeah, to me, I think it's music education, especially, you know, for kids, it's so important. And luckily here in the Netherlands, there's a little more attention for it the last couple of years, because I think it's one of the most important things.
So what is that like to be a student of music and then to teach it now as a recording artist yourself? Is it weird being on that side of the kind of the table?
Well, it also makes me help to understand the students really well, because I know what it is like to walk into this classroom and feel nervous, especially for vocal classes. It's always like you're so vulnerable. You want to do it, you know, the best you can, but when you're nervous, your voice tends to block a little bit. So I think it's really nice to know both sides. And also, like, what I hear from my students, that they really like the fact that I also perform a lot. So it's not only that I'm only a teacher, but I'm also like a performer, and I can say I teach them a little bit about, you know, how to act on stage. And, you know, I know all these little elements of being a student and being on stage. I think it's a good combination.
That's so fun to hear. I teach as well. So hearing
Oh.
from education, I don't teach music. I teach in marketing in digital media spaces. So
Cool.
see it from that side, right? So being that you are a professional, to come back and say, listen, this is what I've learned, but this is also what I've learned in the actual field, right? In the day-to-day being a vocal.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant. Yeah.
So let's talk about the transition between Canopy Acoustics, and now going into Shapes, right? So one of the things that you were really keen on is documenting the process and going through Canopy. Now, I hope that is, but if it is, no worries. So when you were documenting your journey of Canopy Acoustic, and now with Shapes, you were very keen on showing the exploration of instruments, right? How did you want this to sound? How do you think that this would be good at layering? And you also were really keen on collaborating with other artists and producers and engineers. Now, going into Shapes, now, while I have had the chance to listen to it, I would love for you, if you could, to speak on what that process was like getting ready for this project as compared to Canopy.
Well, that's a good question. The Canopy, I really wanted to rediscover myself, being an artist, being a musician, trying to re-explore because what I already told is that before this, I was more like a jazz soul artist, not really. I mean, I wrote, I think, good songs, but not really personal. So first I wanted to explore my more personal side. And I think Shapes is even going deeper into that, being more honest, trying to even tell my story and personal story more, and to share more. But the Canopy, I really wanted to do it myself, you know. I really wanted to discover everything myself. And after that, I really wanted to go back to work together even more with different producers. So Shapes is more a result of, I worked with a really nice producer here in Amsterdam, who's more in like alternative pop. His name is X, and he makes like more like indie alternative pops, just a little bit different from what I do. And I thought it was a really nice mixture of his ideas and my ideas. So I already finished the demos, but then I really produced it with him together. So it's more like a collaboration, and I think it's just how do you say this, building further on the story, or trying to yeah, just experiment more, even, yeah, on what I'm trying to say through my music. I hope that does make sense.
No, absolutely makes sense. So with that being said, what was the inspiration behind the actual title of the EP? So Shapes, and why did you name it that?
Yeah, I was really thinking about it. First I wanted to call it Shades. But then I thought, you know, Shapes, it's sort of the shapes of the different songs, the different shapes of my music. When you look at it from different sides, you can also see all these different colors, I think. That's how I experience it myself. I was just looking for a word that could describe all these different kind of sides. It could also have been called sides, but I'm a big fan of Emily King, and her last album was called Sides. And I thought, okay, no, let's not call it Sides, because I have like all these different kind of musical styles that I just use in my music. Yeah, I think you could also see it as different shape, you know, shaping these different songs using different shapes. That's sort of the visual image that I had. But I thought of it just recently when I didn't think of it before. I first released all these different singles, and then I thought, okay, it's nice to bundle it like together to make like one package and put like 2 demo versions of 2 songs on it. And then I thought, you know, of the title. First I thought it was Shades, but then I thought that's maybe a little bit too shady. I don't know. Let's call it Shapes.
So outside of X, did you work with anyone else? I know that on the album, on Hearts, the single that we actually on the site, you've worked with Kofi Anonymous. Is there anyone else that you worked on the project with?
Most of the songs I produced with X. But for instance, like Surf Rising, which was one of the recent, the last single before Hearts, I wrote together with a very good friend of mine. Her name is Renske Taminio. She also is a singer and writer. I went to the conservatory with her together, so I also collaborate with her sometimes, and she writes beautiful lyrics. So for the rest of the songs, and Surf Rising, I produced with another producer called Darius Timmer, also a guy here from Amsterdam. For the rest, most of the singles were produced with X.
It seems like you keep your creative circle really tight, so that way you have a clearer understanding of each other sonically, and you keep it kind of really close to your chest.
Yeah, that's true.
So
that's true.
One of the themes on the album, the EP, that really stood out to me was the concept of vulnerability, and on Expectations, and then on Castles, and even in some aspects on Hearts, that there's this understanding of how do we be vulnerable in different parts of our lives, whether it's professionally, right? What do people expect of me as an artist, or what do people expect as me as a friend or as a partner, right? So can you speak on that, and why was vulnerability so important for you to really drive home on this project?
Yeah, because I think it's just a big theme in my life, because as I grow older, I really start to learn to embrace it so much more. I used to be, you know, going to high school and even the conservatory, I used to be so scared to really show myself. I could feel so shamed in a way of, you know, who I was. And I when I was a child, I really suffered from this. When I was a teenager, I had sometimes these panic attacks, and I didn't know where they came from, and I was really ashamed of it. I always felt like an outsider, and I never really being bullied or something, but in a way, I always felt really, I don't know, maybe a little bit scared of the world. And then to like 2 or 3 years ago, I always felt so tense. So I tried to find a therapist here in Amsterdam to talk about it, and it opened up a whole new world for me. So I've really learned to be open about it and not feel ashamed, because there's so many people out there who feel the same. And it's so much better to just really share it, these kind of feelings and your fears, and not feeling ashamed of being vulnerable. I always had the feeling, okay, I have to only, I think I always, as growing up, I always showed my strong side. And also at the conservatory, you know, really, you know, always being strong. And I think it's a good survival method in a way, and it really helped me. But it also sort of, how do you say this, covered my more vulnerable side, and I'm sort of discovering that side of me, and I don't feel ashamed anymore, and I feel so much more relaxed and comfortable with myself. And I think it also has to do with growing up, of course, and getting older, and feel so much better. So I really, you know, it's sort of this process I'm in, and I really wanted to also be honest about it in my music.
And I think that's an important conversation to have, especially with your audience or your fan base, because when I was younger, I suffered from really bad anxiety, and like you, I used to have really bad panic attacks. But I've learned how, like, different ways to deal with it, how to feel that it's coming on, right? How to get yourself out of that moment. Whether it's like,
I'm sorry, the connection just disappeared a little bit. Can you say it again? Sorry.
that's a really important conversation to have, because just like you, when I was younger, I did suffer from really bad panic attacks, and it was all this onset anxiety about like being caught into deadlines or whatever it is. And I learned how to manage through it, whether it was like breathing techniques or meditation and stuff like that. So there's always going to be sort of, I hope that we remove that stigma of mental stability, mental health, talking through our feelings, allowing ourselves to sit in our feelings. So if you had to give a message to maybe fans that are dealing with the same type of, whether it's crippling anxiety or they may not know that it's anxiety yet, what would you tell them, and what would your first steps of kind of helping them through that process be?
Yeah, I would definitely say just talk to someone. Just talk about it to someone you trust, your friend or to your family. Don't feel ashamed, and please don't believe that you're the only one, because you're not. You know, it's so important just to get over this thing that keeps you from talking about it and feeling ashamed about it. And first, just talk to someone and just try to get help, because there are so many people out there who can really help you, like professionals, and you will get over it with help. You will feel better.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you are such an advocate for that, and vocalizing how that is important, especially for younger people. Given COVID, a lot of them are online, and they have this sort of anxious anxiety about like what's happening, what are they going to be doing, how to move forward, things like that. So it is important that we kind of put a spotlight on that as well.
Yes.
So talk more about the album. So, well, the EP, I'm sorry, I'm so used to calling things albums. So let's talk about the project. Hearts, I know that we've covered that on the site, but I really wanted to kind of dig into it a bit more. So the song itself, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the things I really took away from it is love and how we love, right? So being that you are an expecting mom to be, was that song more so speaking on your entering motherhood, or how was that kind of the inspiration for that song came to be?
Yeah, well, because of the title, many people think, okay, hearts, it has to do with my heart and the baby's heart, which is really nice and really a very logical conclusion. But I actually wrote this song like 2 or 3 years ago. Um, and it's more about sort of, I feel like it felt like the right moment to release this song because of the child that I carry is of course a result of the relationship I have with my husband, and it's a beautiful thing that we're getting this baby. But of course every relationship has ups and downs, and that's what the song is really talking about. It's it's not always easy to be honest, to stay honest to each other, and really also this vulnerability to to also in a relationship be vulnerable and be able to also say, I'm sorry, I messed up, and I please can we try again, instead of sticking to your point. So that's what the song is really about, and it's also hearts. I thought it was nice because I think it's where you make this connection with each other, and yeah, now there's a baby coming, which makes it even more beautiful. So I thought it really fits.
So I know that most artists hate this question, but I have to ask, what's your favorite track on the project? Do you have one particular track that was just your favorite, whether to make, to write, or that means the most to you?
It's a hard question because I think it also differs a bit from time to time, because of course I've been through all these tracks like a journey. For me to play live in a set, I really love to sing and to play castles, because it feels, I don't know, it feels very close to me. But sometimes I also love All Is Not Lost. Um, yeah, I actually I don't have a clear answer to that, to be honest. The only track, the first one, Expectations, that's the only track that I didn't write myself, so that makes it a little bit of a different track. That song was created on a writing camp I was on in France 2 years ago, and it was written by a different team that I was not on, but I thought it was a beautiful song and it fitted so well to me, so I sort of adopted it and adapted it, and I really wanted to put it on the album or EP or project. I don't mind how you call it, but it's sort of, because there are already too many tracks for an EP. It's sort of an album, but it's not. I don't know.
Well, I mean, we're going to call it whatever you want to call it. It's your baby. So however you want us to refer to it is how we refer to it. I did want to talk about also what's next. I know that we live in this kind of anxious in-between stage, especially with COVID. But what can fans expect next from you as it relates to the project? I know the project will be released very soon this week. So is there going to be any virtual tours that you plan on working on, or any acoustic sets? I know that's a big weight on your shoulders, especially being to be with child right now, but is there anything special that you have lined up, music videos, virtual performances, or anything like that?
Well, I have some really nice tracks that are already finished, which I can't wait to release them as well. So I will continue to release new music next year and following year, but I just have to I just have no idea how I will feel after getting this baby, because I just don't know how things will be will be going, and I'm working on something to release after the baby is born, which still is a little bit of a surprise. So I have some plans. And I also have like a beautiful Christmas track that I finished. So I'm planning on releasing also a Christmas song this year. But I don't have like any specific dates, or because the times are so uncertain. I'm married to a musician. He's a bass player, and also all his gigs are canceled. So I was planning, we were planning on having like a release party for this EP in June, but it was all canceled. So I really, really hope that I can, but my original plan was to like, first to do this EP and then next year do the album and plan a whole tour around it and play live a lot, but we still don't know if it's even possible. So it's a little bit uncertain, but I really hope that I can, you know, start things and especially playing live after taking like 3 months off and, you know, planning everything again.
So the last thing I want to leave with is, how can fans support you? I know right now, as a working artist, and even as you just mentioned, your husband being a working musician, things have really changed the dynamics of the financial stability of artists and creators.
Yeah.
Without live shows, without the ability to actually go and interact with fans, that financial resource has been cut tremendously for a lot of artists. So how can fans support you?
Well, I'm really happy that you even asked that question. That's so nice. Well, by really promoting my music and just stream it a lot, because that's the way to do it now. Of course, I still have my albums. I still have like my vinyl. I also wanted to start a crowdfunding campaign, but maybe I'll do it in a couple of months too, because I really want to have these new tracks also on vinyl. But now at the moment, I'm just very happy if people, you know, put their music, put my music on their playlist, and just, you know, just tell everyone around you, okay, I've discovered this artist and you should listen to it, and you know, that really helps.
Stepping stones paved the road. I didn't know. On my own, off the beaten track. Didn't know. I fell right through the cracks. Expectations, like a nail into the wall. I need everything or nothing at all. Expectations.